27 years ago, on July 29th, 1996, the Traumatic Brain Injury Act of 1996 was signed into law by President Bill Clinton. The act was the only original federal legislation addressing brain injury prevention, research, and the delivery of services to traumatic brain injury victims and their families. The act provided essential funding for initiatives to understand the extent and prevalence of brain injury, educational programs to reduce the incidence of brain injury, and essential research to treat traumatic brain injury. States were provided grants to improve access to care and other services essential for traumatic brain injury survivors. Since then, the act has been reauthorized in the years 2000, 2008, 2014, and 2018, continuing and expanding funding and programs. In 1986, in a report to the governor of New York, the Department of Health stated, "Head injuries that occurred in an instant have produced a lifetime of disappointment, anger, and frustration for thousands of New Yorkers. When victims and their families seek assistance in resolving the problems that result from head injury, they find that in many cases, no help is available." The report highlighted there was no coordination of services, no defined state policies, and no comprehensive network of care. Unfortunately, traumatic brain injury continues to be a nightmare for millions of Americans. Traumatic brain injury has reached epidemic proportions affecting infants, adolescents, our military, victims of domestic violence, athletes at all levels, and the elderly. And despite an attention and funding, access to services is still severely limited for most individuals. The problems identified in 1986 are the same problems that exist today in New York and throughout our nation. Victims and their families lack information on how and where to obtain services. Services, even when they exist, are inaccessible to many. Gaps in services are pervasive. Insurance companies continue to deny reimbursement for necessary care and rehabilitation. State Medicaid waiver programs are difficult to navigate and fail to address the needs of beneficiaries. 27 years later, we are still confronting the challenges and needs of brain injury victims. The silent epidemic of traumatic brain injury must be addressed by Congress in our states. With someone sustaining a brain injury every 9 seconds, according to the Centers for Disease Control, we have no more time to wait. We need a national consensus on brain injury that addresses the needs of those suffering the physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral consequences of an injury that can last a lifetime. So thanks for joining me this week, and I look forward to speaking with you next week on a new edition of the Brain Injury Insider.